Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this important event. It is vital to address the complementarity of water, land, and soil. Under this approach, my recent report to the Human Rights Council addresses the convergence of two vital challenges, especially for those living in poverty: realizing the human right to safe drinking water and restoring the health of aquatic ecosystems. I always insist that the paradoxical global water crisis on planet water, the blue planet, is not so much due to problems of scarcity, but of governance and sustainability. In fact, the 2 billion people without guaranteed access to safe drinking water are not mostly thirsty people without water in their living environments, but severely impoverished people living next to rivers or on aquifers polluted and or overexploited by abusive and unsustainable activities. In this context, the ongoing climate change which deepens and accelerates this global water crisis requires to address two main challenges: making peace with our rivers and aquatic ecosystems, guaranteeing their sustainability, and to promote democratic governance of water understood as a common good and not as a commodity. Addressing these challenges requires a sustainable and human rights-based approach to water management, which means promoting integrated management of the various uses and functions of water, but ensuring the sustainability of ecosystems and the human rights at stake. Guaranteeing the human right to safe drinking water and sanitation requires, in fact, no more than 5% of the flows we are extracting from nature, as I have been insisting in my thematic reports. What is required, therefore, is to ensure the necessary priority of human supply over other uses. But in terms of quality, the requirement must be strict in order to guarantee the potability of supplies, avoiding in particular toxic pollution at all costs. On the other hand, from a human rights approach, alongside the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation, the human right to food emerges in the foreground. As is well known, irrigation generates the greatest consumptive use of water. However, a human rights approach requires a discernment exercise identifying where the hundreds of millions of food insecure people are and what are the keys to this food vulnerability. This does not delegitimize agricultural production for non-essential needs, but it does require setting priorities and policies that ensure access to adequate food for the hundreds of millions of food insecure people. At this point, in the 21st century, what is empirically evident is that considering food or water as mere commodities managed under the logic of the free market and even under the speculative logic of future markets, far from solving the problems of food insecurity, increases them. In my first report to the UN General Assembly in 2021, I addressed the risks and impacts of the financialization of water under the reference of the financialization of food. As I argued in that report, this logic marginalizes the human rights of the most impoverished and triggers problems of unsustainability, favoring the overexploitation and contamination of water, as well as the grabbing of land and water vital to indigenous peoples and peasant communities, especially affecting the health of children and the lives of women as traditional water carriers and health caretakers. Water management, understood as a common good, accessible to all but not appropriable by anyone, requires public management governed by the logic of a general interest from a democratic governance that prioritizes the sustainability of ecosystems and the protection of the rights to water, on which the human rights to drinking water and food depend, with special attention to the most impoverished. I would like to end this brief intervention recalling what I said in my thematic reports last year on the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation of indigenous peoples and impoverished rural communities, citing the concerns of the FAO high-level panel of experts on food security and nutrition in 2019 in recognizing the need for an agroecological transition towards sustainable food systems that reconcile human and ecosystem health with social well-being. It is along these lines, dear friends, that I would like to focus a forthcoming thematic report on the human rights to safe drinking water and food that I will prepare for the UN General Assembly. Thank you very much.